Welcome to the Other Side Pod. I'm Nadine. We're not experts. We're just humans having a human experience we think you can learn from, or relate to, or laugh at, or cry over. So hit download, dive in, and hear how folks found themselves on the other side. All right, we're recording with the lovely Erin. Erin, you were my second person on this podcast back we recorded in the summer. We just remembered together. I think the people want to know how you are.
That's a great question. When you hear about someone talk about stage 4 cancer in advance, it's very concerning. And so it makes sense. And I'm very happy to report that I'm alive and well enough to be here today, which is fantastic news in and of itself.
It
So the
is.
past I would say it's about 6 months or so since we last had a podcast update, and there's been immense joy and also heartbreak at the same time. So I had a really great summer off of treatment. My partner and I spent some time swimming, spending time together, visiting with friends and family, which is really great. And then when we came home, I had a hysterectomy in September, which is something at the beginning of my cancer journey I was told was completely off the table, that I was not well enough, nor would I ever be well enough to have a hysterectomy. So I had one done robotically in a hospital in Mississauga, where there is a surgeon manipulating a robot with sort of 5 prongs across the abdomen. I got to go home the same day. The surgery went fantastically, a great success, which was such great news. And then I had an MRI very shortly after, and that's kind of where the heartbreak bits come in, where I found out that the cancer had progressed to my brain. And that's always bad news. Endometrial cancer going to the brain, as my oncologist has informed me, is extraordinarily rare. The percentage is extremely low. It typically doesn't go there. So it's an anomaly that it has in and of itself. And typically when cancer hits the brain, that's sort of the final stages are setting in. So it's not all terrible news where I wasn't out of options. I was referred to a radiation oncologist. So I underwent brain radiation in December, which was great because it only had to be a single session with this precision tool called the CyberKnife that they have. But the downside is that brain radiation is very similar, I found, to being concussed, where your brain is foggy, you get exhausted very easily, there's sort of headaches and tenderness, and there's no linear progress for it. So radiation doesn't just, oh, I can see that I'm getting better. You do, but it's cyclical. Some things come back, and it's very frustrating. So I'm kind of on the tail end of recovering from the brain radiation, which is very fortunate. So some good news and some bad news. And I have another round of scans coming up in about a month's time. So we're going to find out what's going on in terms of post hysterectomy, what's happening with the sort of endometrial cancer at the site, and then also how the radiation went on the brain. So that's how it's going so far.
We want to talk about tarots. Tarots? No, the tarot. We want to talk about tarot cards. But I have so many questions about your update. One of them is not a question. It's actually a statement. When you talked about you and Sam swimming this summer at her parents' cottage, I remembered your Substack piece about swimming. Can you, do you remember the name of it for people to go read? Because I still have your Substack linked in the Other Side Pod's Instagram bio because it's beautiful. What is that one called?
Cancer floats.
I love your writing. I love it. But that piece in particular, I don't even remember the exact sentence or paragraph or feeling. I know the feeling actually, but I don't remember the exact sentence or paragraph that I read that evoked it. But I remember texting you or calling you about it. It was so beautiful and moving, and I felt like I slipped into your body for a moment. And what a gift. What a gift.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh,
It was one of my favorite things I wrote last year. Swimming has always been a moment in time where I feel very at home in my body when that often hasn't been the case throughout my life. And so being able to kind of become one with the water and let the lake kind of hold my problems, it was amazing. And I'm just so happy that I have the opportunity to do that.
I'm gonna put the exact link to that piece in the show notes. Okay, the
Thank you.
second thing is you were operated on by a robot called the Cyberknife. I can't. The Cyberknife? That's so great.
Yeah.
Did you ever
Yeah.
watch like sci-fi TV, like Battlestar
Yes.
Galactica? Like I feel like
Yeah.
the Cyberknife is season 3, episode 7 or something.
Yeah, and like aside from treatment, it really feels like you're in a Star Trek episode where you're in the sort of bay that and you're getting surgery on by a hologram where you're sort of laying there. Your face is under a mask that they made of your face. It's drilled into a table beneath you, and a large robotic arm kind of whirls around your head 360, clicking every couple of seconds in order to precisely get exactly where it needs to be. And it's so precise to the point that where it waits for you to exhale and then it goes because that's when you're stillest.
Oh, that
It's
was the radiation.
crazy.
Cyberknife was the radiation. Oh,
Yeah. And
that's
then
right. Oh my. Wait, no, not
yeah.
and then. You wait. You had a mask, which I think you sent me a photo of, right?
I think so.
I'm like, do I know somebody else who had to do this? I do. It doesn't matter. It does matter that other person. But my gosh, I'm going to ramble today. You had a mask made of your face, and then you had to have that over your face, and then it
Hmm.
drilled in because the
Hmm.
radiation had to be so precise so as not to harm the healthy brain cells.
Healthy brain tissue. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so you have to go in about a week before the radiation and they make a molding of the mask. And then they put you through a sort of quick MRI scanner, just not MRI, a CT scanner to make sure that the mask is kind of positioned right. And then they put you through an MRI in order to get the location of the tumor. So then the doctor knows exactly how to program the cyberknife to do the treatment properly. It's a crazy thing. And I was so worried about the mask. When they make it, it just feels like a hot towel during a facial. So that's not so bad. You just have to be
Wow.
still for 10 minutes while it hardens. And then it's actually really relieving to be wearing the mask during the radiation treatment because I feel nervous about moving accidentally or
Hmm.
exhaling and my body shifting and or twitching or whatever. And so it's so nice to have the comfort of the mask to be like, I'm exactly where I have to be, quite literally on this table, and I won't move. That this is an insurance policy. To the point where I was like, man, I wish for all my future scans I would have it again.
Wow. And so when you were saying about exhaling, the machine would sense that you were going to exhale, which causes you to move, so it would stop.
Yes. Well,
Oh, wow.
when you inhale, because your lungs are filling, your chest is rising, your heart is beating, you actually move more. When you exhale and your muscles relax and your diaphragm collapses, that's when you're most still. And so they wait for you to begin your exhale, it positions, and then the few seconds that you're exhaled and you don't need to breathe in again, that's when it targets its treatment.
So do they ask you to hold your breath on that exhale?
No, they tell you just to breathe as sort of normally and without big sort of huffs and puffs, but to sort of have really sort of steady inhale exhales.
Okay. Okay. And then, sorry, I said the cyberknife was the hysterectomy surgery. It wasn't. The hysterectomy surgery, though, was also robotic.
Robotic, yeah. It was the hospital in Hamilton doesn't quite have the cancer center in Hamilton doesn't quite have the robotic arms for surgery yet. And so I was referred to Mississauga, which is only 45 minutes away from me, which is really nice. And it's crazy. A doctor sits in a booth and there are sort of nurses, anesthesiologists in the OR, but the surgeon is manipulating kind of like a game console to get a robotic arm inside of you to sort of manipulate. And it's the sort of future of surgeries because the crossover rate of it turning from just a robotic small incisions to an open surgery is really, really minuscule. And the doctors can manipulate the surgical tools inside the abdomen much more easily that way. So I have a joke where I say that a robot stole my uterus.
Yeah, that's going to be a next Substack. That's going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was day surgery because when I had a hysterectomy, I'd stay overnight. But I guess the reason for robotic surgery is that it's less invasive and quicker
Hmm.
recovery because it's less invasive.
Hmm. Yes, exactly.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was pretty amazing to the surgery only took about an hour and a half, and then I was in recovery for about an hour, and then I went home,
Whoa.
which is
Whoa.
pretty
And
incredible.
and you felt good like the days afterwards.
I mean, as much as you can after a surgery, but I was doing quite well, and I was still resting lots, much to my chagrin. I'm not a person who is very good at being still for a long time, but it was so good that in fact a week after the surgery, I defended a sort of piece of work in my degree just because I felt well enough to do so, and I wanted to get that milestone over with. So it was the best case scenario in terms of the surgery.
Amazing. And then I do want to ask about where you are in the PhD program. How's it going?
Yeah, it's good. It's frustrating. It's exactly what it should be. I am in the final stage of my PhD program. Typically, my program is about 5 years long. I'm in the fifth year, so I'm on time, which is great.
Wow.
And I'm working on the final piece, which is the dissertation. That's my unique sort of research. It has to be about 300 pages in length, so that's something that I'm drafting and working on right now.
Ah, and do you get into a flow with it? Like, or is it a really difficult?
Yeah, you start and stop. It's funny. I get into a flow a lot with the Substack, but as you know, as a writer, writing is one of the most frustrating, difficult things you can do, or it's just you versus you the whole time. What's frustrating with the dissertation is that there's a kind of conversation that happens in the research field that I have to engage with. I can't just go and do my own thing because that's what I think and what I want to say, where I actually have to wrestle with these different ideas and stances of how other people say they understand the world and how does that sort of match with what I'm trying to say. So it's complex and difficult to do other people's ideas and pieces of writing justice, but it is very rewarding when you kind of start to see the pages stack up and you're like, oh, I'm well on my way for writing a book. That's crazy.
Crazy. Like 300 pages total? Crazy. Ah,
Yeah, yeah, but it's part of the process. It's how academics cut their teeth.
yeah.
It's something to be proud of at the end.
Oh, 1,000%. And when you talk about it, you have this energy. So I don't know if this just makes sense to you, but I can tell it's not weighing you down. When someone's
Yeah.
talking about something and they're like, you can just kind of see them like get a little heavier and deflated, but you don't. You kind of sit up straight. And yes, I can tell you're still
Yeah.
into it and proud of it. And that makes me happy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Erin! Ah,
there's a unique joy to it. I really love the research that I'm doing, which makes a big difference. If I was just kind of
yeah.
slogging away in some archive that I didn't feel passionate about, then it would be an uphill climb the whole way. Whereas this is like, oh, I'm doing this for me because I want to, not just because I have to.
And as a writer, tell me there's a better feeling than saying what you want to say and getting it exactly as you want to say it out finally.
Yeah.
God.
It's so rewarding. I get this feeling when I write where I have I'll be laying or having a nap or taking a shower, just doing something totally unrelated. And then suddenly I just get this paragraph in my head and it just pours out of me. So I would be struggling for a week up until that point, and then I finally sort of hit it and it comes together. My subconscious put all the pieces together and I just have to get it out on the page.
Same. Same.
I love that feeling. There's
Yeah,
nothing
can
like it.
relate. Can relate
Yeah.
to being in the shower and being like, oh my God. And then you almost say it to yourself without realizing you're saying it. I
Hmm.
don't know if I talked to you about this before, but I feel like I've said this before to many people, and it's not my own thing. Yeah, I don't know where it's from. But this idea that stories, ideas like float by us, and it's like
Yeah.
it like comes into your body and you either grab it or you let it go and it goes to the next person that it's meant to travel
Yeah,
to.
that's a huge piece in Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic,
Ah,
where she talks about how that's actually happened to her in her life, where she had the story and it wasn't coming together, and years later she was talking to a writer friend, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm working on this piece. It's this, and this," and she was like, "Oh my God, I didn't tell that story, and so it manifested elsewhere."
I think it
But
happens.
yeah,
I read
yeah.
about, I think it was like something years ago that I read, and it was this woman said she was like hanging clothes out on her drying the clothesline, and she was like, it just hit me, and I had to put everything down and go in and get it out because I knew if I didn't in that moment, it would have just passed right through me. And you don't have a lot of time, so I literally remember being in the shower and being like, oh, and it's like the story's in your head already, or the way you want to say something you've been trying to get out for a while just all of a sudden formulates in your head and you hear it or something. And then it's like, yes. And then I remember like getting out and just being like, I have to just get this out in rough form or I'm going to lose the pieces of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that feeling can apply to so many different things where we all have our medium that it expresses. I think you and I, words are the way that it makes the most sense to get it out. But my father-in-law's a musician, and so sometimes he'll be like, "Oh yeah, there's this thing," and then he'll be like, "1 second," and go over to the piano and play something. And so music was the way to sort of express an idea, or this sort of thing came to him. And so it's so funny. I imagine the same way it must be for athletes, where you're like, oh, I know exactly how I'm going to approach something or how I'm going to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really funny, sort of finding the ways in which some people say it's the universe moving through you. If you're into that kind of thing, of it is a deeply individualistic craft to work at and continue and to get that sort of subconscious idea coming forward. But at the same time, like you're saying, it's all out there and we're just vessels for it at any given time.
You know, I wasn't sure how we would lead from talking about, let's talk about your update, because I really wanted to ask you how you're doing. I wanted people to hear into the tarot cards. But what you just said and how you said it, I'm like, right, yes. This leads me directly into tell me everything about tarot.
I can tell you what I know. I don't know everything. I could spend an entire lifetime just working on tarot. And so all I've got is what I've got so far, but I think it's pretty good.
Okay, I love it.
Um, Yeah, I remember the first time I'd ever kind of heard of tarot. Of course, I'd known of like psychics and that sort of idea as a little kid. But I remember my grandmother had this closet in her basement that had the sort of pull string to turn on the light. And there was a bag in the basement that had sort of these decks inside of it. And I remember carrying them upstairs and being like, what are these? And she's like, oh, those are my tarot cards. I've had them since the 70s, and this was the mid 2000s. And so that was the first time where I was like, oh, there's actually cards that are a part of this, that there's this tangible aspect to being able to divine information and things like that. But for me, as I got older, tarot wasn't necessarily about the future or having absolute truths, but it became this way to tell stories. And both my mom and my sister we had this ritual on Sundays or after holiday dinners. My mom would say, should we pull a couple cards? We'd sit down and pull 3 cards. And sometimes they'd be like oracle cards, which are unrelated to tarot, but usually based around feeling or experiences, things like that, all the way to proper Rider Waite tarot cards. And we would pull these cards and look up the meaning and talk about what we thought it meant, or what kind of stories being told, what kind of message we were supposed to hear, what kind of advice is it giving to us. So it's something that we developed as a practice, and I kind of leaned a bit more on tarot when I moved out of my mom's house. I moved to Ottawa to start my master's degree. I didn't really know anyone, hadn't gone to a ton of parties, wasn't that kind of person in my youth. And so I brought my tarot cards with me as kind of like a party trick, as a way to connect with people. And that's when I really got into sort of practicing and developed the sort of craft of how do I connect with someone using tarot, not as a malicious means of kind of hyping up the emotions or trying to give them a direct message, but as a way of genuinely saying like, hey, I know what these cards means. What do they mean with you? And it became this way that I could use as like a social currency to get to know people and to let them know about me as well. And that's when I started really reading tarot and developing different kinds of spreads that I would do and learning more about what other people do to sharpen the craft of it.
Your grandmother had tarot cards from the 70s. Did you dig in
Yeah.
that moment?
think I was like 7, and at the time I was like, "Oh, that's scary." I was
Right.
raised Catholic, and so something that was a spiritual but not in a religious church sense was very intimidating. Very like, is this God or the devil? I can't tell. And it was the kind of thing I held on to those cards for several years. And when we all moved from my family home, I was like, oh, I'll get rid of these. Man, I wish I still had them. Where they
Oh,
were sent in a donation bin years ago, and I wish I
right.
kind of had these old cards. But in lieu of that, I have my own sort of collection of tarot cards now.
Did your grandmother ever show them to you? Like pull a card for you or no?
No, I don't remember her ever pulling a card, but it was something where my grandmother was very spiritual, where she
Mm.
was a devout Catholic. Up until the end of her life, she was still going to TV mass and all those kinds of things. So I think for her, it was just more of an emblem of her spirituality than it was
Oh.
necessarily the sort of card practice for her.
And your mom would pull cards on the Sunday after holiday dinner. When did that start?
Mhm. It started probably 10, 15 years ago, that sort of thing. My mom's always kind of had a curiosity about spirituality and things like that. And so she really loves tarot. Whenever I'm curious about a card or I feel stumped about something, I immediately call my mom and she'll be like, well, this is what the experts say. My mom was
Cool.
a teacher her entire career, and so whenever I need something explained, she's the number one person I would go to for that.
Okay, so you start pulling your own card. Wait, when's the time you bought your first deck?
So my first deck I probably bought about 10 years ago when I was
Okay.
18. And I've had my own deck. And I remember in the year 2018, I was very, very in to do a vision board. So I did a vision board and I pulled tarot cards to kind of get a sense of what the year would hold. And I filled out the rest based on that. And at that point in time, the Empress card, which is a part of the tarot deck, was really important to me. And so that was kind of the symbol that I held on for quite some time. And the Empress card, it's kind of misinterpreted. Some people see it as just being strictly motherly energy, but I see it more as a creation card, a manifestation card, where it's about hearth and home and growth and sort of giving attention and detail and care to the things in your life that matter to you. So it's that sort of nurturing that doesn't necessarily have to be strictly motherly, but a nurturing in a big sense and for that card. So that was really important to me when I was coming of age and becoming a young adult and trying to figure out what my place in the world and what it meant to me.
So when you say it was important to you, every time you pulled a card, were you like, I hope I pull this one? Or did you kind of flip that card up and have it there in front of you for a bit?
A little bit of both, where I remember I photocopied the card and then cut it out so it could still be in
Cute.
my deck. And I would
Oh.
always kind of hope that it would come up. And there's some cards that would come up at certain points in my life. So I remember I would pull whenever the Empress came up, it'd be kind of an important transition point when something sort of big or unexpected when my life would radically change. A different card called the Tower would come up, which is kind of like a forest fire where everything is burned down, but that gives opportunity for new growth. It will just look completely different than it was before. So there's definitely certain cards that I hold on to at different points in my life. I think over the past year, I've kind of been interested in the Wheel of Fortune card, especially with the whole cancer process. And the Wheel of Fortune is this idea that there's this wheel of fates and we don't know what we're going to get. So the Wheel of Fortune can continue to spin in both fortuitous and unfortunate ways. And we don't know where it's going to land, but it's about sort of embracing the results that we are part of something much bigger than ourselves. And we don't know where the wheel will spin. So that's
Does
kind
that
of been
make
guiding my year.
why? Why? Why is that important to
Mm,
you this year?
I think because there's so much that's been out of my control, where I can decide to do treatments, I can decide to take rest, I can decide to write, all those kinds of things. But there's so many things within my own body that I have no control over. And so for me, that's kind of like the Wheel of Fortune. I don't know how it's going to work itself out. And so embracing the sort of volatile nature of life where, the rug could be pulled out from under you at any given point. You could be shocked, you could be surprised, but you could also be really sort of graced with good things, that you could be surprised with connection, with meaning in a way that you didn't expect. So that's why I really leaned into the Wheel of Fortune card, because I was just riding the waves of what was happening to me, knowing that I didn't have much choice in driving the direction it went into.
And when you say it's been an important card for you this year, thanks for explaining that, by the way. I get it. When you say it's been a really important card, did you photocopy it? Do you take it out? Or is it just something you think of?
It's something I think of a lot whenever there's a whole thing in the cancer world called scanxiety, where you feel a lot of anxiety between when your scans occur, then when it either gets uploaded on your My Chart or your doctor calls you. And it's a really anxious period because you just don't know what's going to happen. So leaning into that energy of the Wheel of Fortune of I have no idea where this wheel is going to land, that kind of gave me control to be like, it will be okay no matter what, even if the wheel lands in the worst way possible that I don't want to. Like when I found out that I had a brain tumor, that was something I did not want to know. I did not want to experience and go through the treatment for. But I had control over, okay, I can express these feelings, I can get out the worst of it, and I can still do things that make my day a good day, despite all of that. So it was a way to kind of be like, there's something bigger happening that I can't control. I can do things. I can still have some sense of control in how I approach my daily life. So it was
Right.
kind of like a release in a lot of ways.
It's like taking something that could be very unsettling because it is, and the card itself could be very unsettling. Like some people may never want to see that or even know it exists in the deck. Whereas you take something that you're like, it's unsettling on purpose, and I'm going to take it,
Mm.
and how can I ground myself in it? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the year last year, I had a professor who's a mentor of mine when all of this sort of when I first got diagnosed and everything like that. We've always connected over tarot, or she calls it tarot. And
On purpose, like for fun,
yeah,
or
some people call it tarot. And so
oh,
that's
okay.
her approach to it. Yeah. And so I remember talking to her being like, I just don't know what to do with tarot because it means a lot to me, but it feels too scary, too fate sealing when I pull these cards.
Ugh,
And what if it
right.
what if it pulls out the worst? And her advice to me was like, just take it one card one day at a time. Just pull a single card and see what happens. And so for a long time, I didn't do larger spreads. I didn't pull multiple cards. I just did one a day in order to get me through that singular day. So instead of tarot being this huge thing about the future and fear, it became this one sort of reflective moment in that day of like, oh, this card came up like for today. It was the Ace of Cups, which is a single cup. There's almost like a godly hand delivering it. It's overflowing with water. And so the Ace of Cups is all about sort of aces are all about new opportunity, about a gift, and cups are all about feeling, emotional flow, creativity. So it's like a new opportunity, a new emotional avenue has kind of opened up. So it's like, oh, I can take that one symbol for today, and then it's not so scary. It's not so
Ah.
terrifying of what it could mean. And is it going to tell me that I'm going to die tomorrow? I don't know. Instead of it being that sort of spiral, it was like, no, this is a single reflective process.
Have you ever pulled a card and you were like, this is bullshit?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. There's sometimes I'll be a little frustrated being like, no, no, I don't think that card applies. Absolutely not. And I'll reshuffle and it pops out. It's like,
Stop.
yeah,
It comes
okay.
out again?
Yeah, that's happened to me a couple of times where a card will kind of just pop out and it'll be the one that I kind of went to go tuck away despite sort of shuffling
Love it.
quite dead religiously. So
So,
sometimes
do you remember
sometimes you
one of
have to be
those?
spoon fed. Well, I think one of the best moments was when I first met my wife Sam. We both were like, "Oh yeah, we both like tarot and that sort of thing." And so we were on our I think it'll be our fourth date. I went over to Sam's house and she's like, "Oh, I've got this tarot deck. Let's take a look." And so we shuffle a card and a card pops out for me. I just flew out while I was shuffling and it was the Two of Cups, which is about it's known as like the new partner, new romance kind of card. And I was like, well, that's hilarious. And then Sam was like, well, I want to pull a card too. So Sam takes the deck, shuffles for a couple of minutes. One flies out, falls on the floor. We go to pick it up. It's the Two of Cups. And so it was one of those things where like, no, that's ridiculous. We went to go put it back. Sam stopped shuffling. I think it's this card. Pulls it up. It's the Two of Cups again. So it became like the universe trying to spoon feed us like, no, no, no. Pay attention to this relationship. There's something here. You got to check it out.
That blows my mind, and I'm here for it. Like, I love
Yeah.
that. Like, you met my mom. You actually did a tarot reading on my mom. Lorraine Hogan would be like, coincidence. I don't even know how she would sum that up. I am like, if it was a pool, I'm diving all the way in. I think that's so
Mhm.
beautiful. I would just have to pull
Mhm.
it one time probably and be like, David, we're meant to be. And you had three times.
Yeah, times, and every time there's been a huge sort of landmark moment in our relationship, like deciding to move in together, about moving to Hamilton, all those kinds of things, deciding to get married, the card would kind of come up again. And so it became this sort of symbol of our relationship as we've gone through it. And some skeptical people might be like, well, you're looking for it. And it's like, that's true. But if I'm looking for it, then that's an indication of how I'm actually feeling, what I want out of the world. So
Oh,
even if you'd see it as a skeptical lens, there's a kind of like unconscious knowing that can tilt the scales one way or another. So even if you don't believe in the universe sending signs or symbols, you're not that kind of person. I do think there is a really reflective moment that comes up with tarot readings that can tell you kind of what's happening, what feelings are being suppressed, what are you looking for out of your life or out of that day even.
I love that perspective. And one of my questions was going to be, yeah, what do you like? People say that, I mean, you could make a card mean anything that you want it to mean. And on the flip side of that, you want that card to mean this because it's telling you something. You're telling yourself something. That's,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, that's really beautiful. Back to you buying your first deck of cards. Is there some kind of old wives' tale that you're not supposed to buy your first tarot deck or any tarot deck? Is that a thing? You're not supposed to
Yeah,
buy it
my
yourself or
mom
something?
there's a whole sort of world where people think that you can't buy yourself your first tarot deck. I don't particularly buy into that idea. I think if you're interested in tarot, that's something that you feel called towards, then buy your deck, do it. It's some people think that you need to wait for the universe to deliver to you. Perhaps that's true, but I remember my first deck was a gift from my mom. It was the Rider Waite style because there's several kind of styles of tarot. The Rider Waite is the one that I dabble in, and it's called the Radiant style. So it takes the original imagery and it kind of just like spruces it up a little. So I'm a firm believer in the original sort of symbols and images. I think it's really cool that there's like millennial style tarot decks or plant tarot or cat tarot, stuff like that. I think that's really that's such a fun and interpretive way to engage people. But I really like taking a look at the card and seeing like, okay, there's important information about like direction, about like symbols, about color. And I really like sort of taking a pause and looking at the original imagery in order to take that information. There's a lot of people who read tarot who say like, oh, if you see kind of this like upside down M, look for that in your everyday life because then that might be an indication for something to pay attention to. So there's sort of the symbols in the deck that I really like as kind of reminders. So that's what I tend to favor the original images in the Rider Waite. But that's to say is if you find a deck that speaks to you, go for it. I am
Right.
not in the business of telling people what to do. And if something means if you like it, if it delights you, if it makes you happy, absolutely. Like, don't
Go
deprive
do it.
yourself of that just because you don't think it's more true or whatever to the original stylings.
Right. And like if you want to buy it, don't just sit and wait for someone to buy it. Just go get it. Just get
Yeah,
curious about it.
yeah, exactly. And the thing is with tarot people, I when I talk to them, they're like, "Oh, I love tarot decks. I might even have one, but I get overwhelmed because I don't know what the cards mean." And it's like, Absolutely. No one is born knowing exactly what the cards mean. If you do, you have a gift. But it for me, it was just that matter of practice of saying like, okay, what are because tarot actually has like two decks in a single thing. There's a major arcana and a minor arcana. So the standard rider weight will have those two decks within it. And within the minor arcana, especially like a regular kind of deck of cards, there's four suits. And so learning about the different suits, about the major arcana, the minor, it takes practice. There's, I think it's something, 78 cards. And so it takes time in order to learn each of the cards about what they mean. And then on top of that, it also takes time to be like, okay, what do these things mean in relation to each other when I pull multiples? So it's a practice like anything else. It's not supposed to be perfect, and I think I'm way better at now than I was 10 years ago when I started. And that's just because I was like, oh, I want to make some friends. How do I do this? And so pulling cards and being able to say like, oh, this is what it means. I think the other like number one piece of advice I have when it comes to reading, especially your own tarot cards, is look at the card. Just look at the image. What does it say to you? What do you notice? What feeling or thought does it provoke? And that tells you that's half the story on top of, what the card symbols and what the card traditionally means. Because again, this is a practice for you to think, what am I looking for? What kind of advice do I need? What struggle am I going through? What kind of fears are kind of dominating me right now? And so turning to the tarot, you can use that as a self-reflective tool. So again, looking at the images and what they say to you right now is more than half the battle of like knowing what the cards mean.
So when you're going to go pull a card or do a reading, is there something you think about while you're shuffling the cards?
I try and focus on breathing. Because I have a little tradition where there's a little thing that when you are about to read a deck, and especially someone else had the deck before you, or what maybe, I give it a little knock on the top and it clears the energy, what may be. It's more of a ritual for me. And I go and I shuffle the deck. And when I do that, I really like to just focus on breathing in and out slowly. And sometimes I focus on a question or something I'm struggling with, and that will kind of help give me guidance in terms of how I'm going to read the cards. And when I do tarot for other people, I ask them to shuffle it because it's their cards. And some people like to pull their own, some people want me to pull it. Either way, you'll get cards, you'll get a reading. And I think it's part of that ritual of like, how do I pause for just a minute in my life and try and make some meaning out of it? Try and connect with something greater than just the problem in front of me. And so it is that sort of spiritual sense, and not in religious, but like spiritual of like non-material meaning in the world of I am this consciousness in this crazy body in this crazy society. What if I just slow down for a second and take a look at these really pretty pictures on cards and see what they tell me and give me a fresh perspective? I think that's the other bit thing is that I think tarot is most effective when it challenges or opens up perspective, something that you hadn't considered or thought of before. And that's what it'll either reaffirm something that you think, or it'll say, oh, maybe I've been going about this wrong. And that doesn't mean that you should change everything about your life, but it is a perspective storytelling tool in a lot of ways that fiction books are. There's a reason why we have fables and tales in our worlds because they tell us something about ourselves, whether it's morals, values, direction. And I think tarot is just an extension of those ancient storytelling traditions that have existed within human culture.
Do you know how far back it goes? I mean, I know I could Google this, but I just kind of like to ask you.
So, tarot's existed for quite a long time. A lot of people have associated the rise of tarot with managing illiteracy rates in Europeans in the 15th century. There's a lot of Egyptian imagery within the tarot deck. So, some people kind of put the origin there with Egyptian sort of mythology, gods and goddesses. That is some part of it. But a lot of it is the importation of that within Dark Ages European culture. So the tarot Rider-Waite deck as we know it now kind of emerged in the 1700s in Italy during the Renaissance. And then it kind of spread in different places, and it was kind of popular in the Dark Ages in England because people were illiterate. It was a way for the church to tell stories in order to imbue values among the population who couldn't read a Bible, couldn't access a Bible, that sort of thing.
Wait, the church
So
would use tarot?
not officially, but it
Okay.
was a way if you had like a mother with children who wanted to sort of share something about values, they would use the tarot to kind of reinforce
Mm.
those sort of ideas. So there is some sort of religion connection that comes up
Oh,
that with tarot, but it wasn't an explicit tool. But a lot of people say like Egypt is the origin, or they say there's the Italian Renaissance is kind of where the images really were solidified, and then the practice was developed in English speaking parts of England, and that's kind of how it was imported elsewhere. But
so the
of course,
rider waite. Yeah, sorry, go.
yeah, so but that's just the extraordinarily white telling of it. There are so many ways in which like hoodoo culture has developed among like especially West African people. And so there's a whole that's the colonial perspective of how we understand tarot. There's so many other ways in which cards with images have been developed as like a spiritual practice amongst other nations and other places.
Of course, right. Thanks for adding that. So the rider waite cards, are they the more like what out of colonialism, like kind of the white European cards,
The
like those images?
Yeah, especially with the phrase like rider weight, like they that is kind of where they come from. So I would attribute that with that sort of European English speaking is the rider weight emergence. I believe the images of that, like the original images on the cards, if you get like a traditional rider weight pack, I believe they're illustrated in the 1920s. I'll have to double check, and in case that's wrong, I can send it to you to add in the show notes.
Okay.
So again, it is still a very modern practice. Tarot, as we
Yeah.
know it now, it stems. We've had this kind of version of it in different places at different times, but it is quite a modern thing as we know it now. And there's also a different version of the tarot that I'm less familiar with called the TOS,
Oh, I've
THOTH,
never heard of
which
that.
has it has some shared pieces of the Rider Waite, but totally different interpretations and purposes. So again, that's a field that I'm less familiar with, but I know a lot of people who really love it, and it's just a different way
Cool.
to approach tarot. Yeah,
So it's same deck, different way to approach it.
there's some shared cards, but
Okay.
I think it has a different it has some different pieces as well.
So your favorite card right now is it's the Wheel
Yeah,
of
I think that was
Fortune
my
card.
biggest card last year was the Wheel of Fortune. It's the one that kind of comes up for me again and again.
And what about this year? Have you found it yet? Is there anyone sticking out? We're yeah,
Nothing
fresh
is
into the year.
yeah, we're fresh into the year. I it's interesting because I really love tarot, but I also sometimes struggle with it because I do give it a lot of meaning. I don't want it to guide me one way or another, if that makes sense. Where I
Yes,
give it a
right.
lot of power, and so I don't want it to have power over me. So I'm in this place where like I love doing readings. I have this tradition every New Year's Eve. I'll do a big tarot spread. And so I did one this year, and the biggest sort of message I had this year was to like charge forwards with the things that I'm doing. Take this kinetic energy of working on my writing and to do that, and so I don't have one defining card for this year yet, but that's because I'm in this place of figuring out where it fits into my life as I exist in like periods of stability and then periods of treatment as I live with cancer for the rest of my life. So trying to find out if I'm not using this as a fortune future telling tool, how can I then incorporate it in my everyday life then?
And you still pull a card every day, do you?
Yeah, I try my best to, yeah.
Yeah.
There are some days where I'm up and out the door, but I've really tried to pull a card and just to see what's happening that day, what comes up for me.
And it's in the morning when you do that.
Yeah, typically in the morning, I'll wake up
Okay.
and that's something that I'll do. I keep my tarot deck right on my bedside.
Oh. And so if you don't pull it in the morning, you get home, let's say you had to go out for whatever, and then you get home at like 3 p.m., you won't pull it.
Yeah, sometimes the day gets away with you. It's not a perfect, I try not to make it a prison of I have to do this. I have to do a card pull every day, otherwise the day's a problem. It's like, no, 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 it's something I like to incorporate. It's a ritual. It's not a burden. And so
Right.
if I wake up and I had my brain radiation and I'm exhausted that day, and engaging spiritually and writing it down in the sort of journal that I keep with it, I I don't have to. It's something that I want to do. So I want to keep it in that place of incorporating it because it adds to my life, not because I've kind of cornered myself in this perfect box of my day must look like XYZ, otherwise it's incomplete.
I feel like we can easily do that. We find something we love and we're like, "Oh, I'm going to do that every day." And if you don't, it's almost like you're thrown. And then it's like, "Well, I've failed." And so you don't touch it for a long time. It's like, why does it have to be
Mhm.
so specific? This, I
Yeah.
didn't pull it. I didn't do a reading on New Year's Eve. I haven't pulled a card actually in a few months, but on New Year's Eve, Mom and Danielle and I did a podcast and we talked about resolutions and whether or not to set them. And none of us really set them, but we did talk about like, is there anything you want to bring into your year? And I was like, I want to bring in more flexibility and not like through yoga, but like mentally in my habits, in my patterns, because I can be rigid. Like I love to do morning pages. I find them very helpful. Get up and I write 3 pages and get stuff out of my brain. And then I almost like feel like I don't carry it around. And I get into this beautiful rhythm and I feel really good. And then I miss a day and I'm like, well, you didn't do your morning pages. And then a year goes by. And so now I'm like, I'm going to do them on the mornings when I have time or I think to do them. Or the other day I sat to do them and it was 12. I was like, you know what? I just have this desire to write. Anyway, it's just such a gift to be more flexible in your life with these things that you're either discovering or have been doing for a long time. It's a good reminder for people.
Yeah. And of course, like there's a fine line that comes between being flexible and then avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really don't want to, if I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to pull a tarot card, it's like, no, what am I avoiding here? Why don't I want
Mm.
to? And so
Yeah.
I think that's the fine line where I wake up so many mornings and I say, I don't want to write today. I don't want to have to sit down and try and force myself to get something out and to sort of read through what I wrote last and what kind of has to come up next and do that sort of mental work. So I kind of coax myself and say, I just have to write a sentence. I have to write something. It doesn't have to be the perfect 3 pages I needed to get out today, or the perfect chapter I needed to finish reading, but I just need to get out something because that keeps, so my wife has this metaphor of a lot of sort of thinking, whether it's spiritual output, mental output, emotional, is like turning a tap on and off. And so when you don't turn on a tap for a while, it gets sort of rusty and the water hardens. And when you turn on the tap, what comes out is sort of rust water and dirty, and you have to sort of clear the pipes. So for her, you turn the tap on every day so you don't have to do that massive clear out of starting a habit new. But again, when you start a habit new again, like pulling tarot cards, if you haven't for a few months, it's okay to turn on the tap and feel a resistance or uncertainty, or you're not in the groove with it because you're clearing out those pipes of what was kind of stagnant before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I apply that to a lot of things like my tarot practice, my reading practice, things like that.
Yeah, I like that. I like the imagery of that too. How many different ways can you read tarot? Besides, okay, one is
Yes.
pulling a card a day.
Mhm.
Is there like a
There
set number of
are
ways?
No, there are endless ways. So there are some sort of traditional structures, and if you buy a tarot deck, there'll be a little booklet in that comes in the box, and it'll give you sort of 3 examples of ways to read it. One is like a 3 card sort of pull, where you can ask. It could be one card is the past, one is the present, one's the future, or a problem, a solution, and an outcome. And then the other one that's very classically in the sort of info pamphlet about tarot is the Celtic cross. So that's a spread where you kind of have a card that represents you, something that's crossing you, a rotation, what's kind of around the problem, and then some cards that are on the side that kind of provide support or might be challenges to sort of get through this period of your life. So that's a very common one that comes up if some people go to psychic fairs. If you get a tarot reading there, that'll be kind of the spread that might come up that way. There's some ways that people read tarot If there's a specific card that means something to you, like for example, Nadine, if you're interested in, let's say, the Strength card, what you can do is shuffle the deck and then kind of sort through the deck and look for the Strength card and then see what surrounds it in the deck before and after. And that can be a way
Ooh.
to kind of think about the relationship. So if there's something that you want to focus on or an energy or an idea, that's one of my favorite ways to kind of just quickly be like, oh, okay, so if I look at my tarot deck in front of me in the Strength card,
Okay,
around it is the
fun.
high around it is the High Priestess, and then also the Death card.
Okay, give me this reading for you.
Yeah, so just as an example, the High Priestess is a big card about like intuition, about knowing, about sort of your higher self, the version of you that is self-assured and knowing that's kind of within you. And then the Death card, a lot of people attribute to endings, when in fact it's about an end and a new beginning. And so that around the Strength card, I would interpret it as strength is kind of very self-explanatory. It's about sort of feeling confident, about feeling strong, about having a direction and not knowing. So if I were to interpret this, the cards around it, strength comes from that sort of like intuition place of knowing how strong I am. And then also strength is in embracing endings and knowing that they're scary, intimidating, but with an end comes a beginning. And so being strong means having that sort of assuredness in myself that I'm part of something greater, that I know what I'm doing, but also that it is okay to come to the conclusion of something and to open a new horizon. So that's a way that you can kind of like piece those together as a narrative about what it could mean.
I love that. I never thought of reading it that way. So you have to have a card in mind.
Yeah, that's one way to approach it, that sort of shuffling method that I would call it.
Hmm.
I've had tarot readers who will pull 20 cards and lay them in front of me and sort of tell a story that way. I've seen people pull 4 cards, represents the sort of 4 seasons in a year, or even 12 cards
Mm.
for one every year. So I do think that tarot is uniquely yours, that there are structures, there are ways that you can look up about if you want to figure out how to read them, but over time as you kind of practice it, you can make it your own, and you can read in ways that make sense to you, pick up tricks along the way of how to read the tarot cards or different ways to structure them. But those are kind of the main ways that I dabble with, is like pulling 3 cards of the Celtic Cross, and then just very quickly, if I have a sort of question about one, I will do that sort of shuffling, look for the card, and see what goes before and after it.
Do you ever need to refer back to the booklet anymore? Like, probably not, eh?
Yes and no. There are times when I know what all the cards mean. I have different kind of understandings of them, different interpretations. But there are some times when I feel stumped and I don't know. And sometimes I don't want to be the all knowing person reading the cards. I want to see what the book tells me.
Mm.
And there are so many tarot interpretation books. There's a tarot interpretation book by an author named Michelle T. I really like that one. And with each card, she not only has multiple ways to interpret it, but there's also little witchy rituals like writing down a fear, burying it in your backyard, or brewing a tea and drinking it at a certain time, that sort of stuff. So if you want something to do with the reading, that provides some good guidance. So there's tons of interpretive books that you can buy associated with the tarot deck, and that helps give context as well. And there's, of course, 101 tarot websites. And there's different ways to read a tarot. There's this thing called inversions, where if a card pops up in your reading and it's upside down, there's a sort of negative reading. I personally don't do inversions, where I find that the cards kind of contain a mix of positive and negative that they contain within themselves, that imaging. So the upside down nature doesn't suddenly unlock a negative version of the card where it kind of contains that in and of itself already.
Right, because
And
in the
so that
booklet I have, actually, it tells you, like, if I picked up the Ten of Cups, it tells me upright and reversed. So you don't bother with the reversed.
personally, I don't. I know some people live and die by it, and it means so much to them.
Cool.
But for me,
Okay.
the upright card in and of itself will give the message that I want. I know that I want to hear, but that I'm going to hear.
Okay, I just pulled a card.
What did you pull?
I mean, admittedly, here's where I go. I like a framework. So I almost get in my own way. So I'm shuffling as you're talking, and I'm like, am I shuffling in the right amount of time? Is this card speaking to me? Is this card speaking to me? I just have to like chill out, be more flexible
Mm-hmm.
in 2026, Nadine. And then I was like, oh, I didn't really think of anything, but I pulled the Five of Cups.
Mm-hmm. So the Five of Cups is is a really interesting card. So as I was explaining before, you've got those two decks, Major Arcana, Minor Arcana. Minor is like the four suits. So Cups is one of those suits. And like a regular deck
In
of
the
cards, it goes through
minor arcana.
Minor
Sorry, the
Arcana.
cups
Yeah, yeah.
is a suit. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a suit kind of like spades or diamonds in a regular deck of cards. You have the four suits, which are cups, which have to do with sort of the water element, wands, which have to do with fire, swords, which have to do with air, and then, of course, sorry, I just had brain radiation. Sometimes my memory is not so
Listen.
great.
Forgive her. She's had brain radiation.
Thank you so much. I swear I know all of the cards.
Listen, you know
This
all of the
doesn't bode
cards
well for me.
because it does. You've, you know all of this.
Oh, Pentacles, which is Earth. My
Yeah.
apologies.
Don't you dare
So
apologize.
So pentacles. So pentacles have to do with earth, material things, that's, and so on and so forth. So cups is water, which is feeling, creativity, emotion, expression, connection. Those are kind of the key words that are associated with cups. And like a regular deck of cards, your suit goes from ace, which is the first, all the way up to king. And so you have ace, two, three, four, five, six, seven, all the way up to king. And so five is kind of that halfway point in the suit where it is kind of the height of conflict in that particular area. So the Five of Cups, it's having the sort of confliction within yourself about how you feel, about trusting it, and about managing sort of frustration or emptiness or not really knowing what to do. And if you look at the image that's on that five, you'll notice you have this cloaked figure. So the cloak is kind of this heaviness. It's got it's a dark quality to it. And you'll see these overturned cups where it's almost like you keep going to these places thinking that it will fulfill you, thinking that it'll mean something, and they just come up empty every time. But what's interesting about this card is that if he just turned around, he would see that there are two perfectly upright cups that he can fill up himself at the river. That there's a stubbornness with this feeling where you actually aren't empty, you have to fill up your own cup. So that is that challenge point, that perspective of instead of feeling frustrated and lost and not knowing what to do, how can I, in even just a really small way, pick up that cup and fill it myself?
And there's a river. What's the building?
So the building is a castle. It's kind of like what's on the other side when you
Plug.
overcome this feeling. Hey, it's what's now that's an Instagram clip.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what's on so it's what's on the other side of this emotional conflict is embracing this imagination of what your life could be, of what is already there for you.
I love it. Every time you read a card for me or read many a card for me, I'm always like, how does she see into my soul? And then you know what I like to do? I like to keep that card turned up and tuck in my little box. And then, because I want to remember the next time. And then I put it in this beautiful little pouch that your wife crocheted for me that Theo then chewed and made it look like a really big clitoris, we called it last time we talked.
Yes.
Why? I remember when you told me that she crocheted this for me. Well, you gave it to me. What's the meaning behind that?
So Sam is a very talented crocheter, comes from a line of talented crocheters. Her grandmother, her mother are exceptional at what they create. And Sam really likes sort of making something for people. And crocheting is really interesting because it's just a series of loops over and over and over again. Where knitting, you're doing sort of knots, but crochet is you're pulling something through a loop. And so it's this kind of like circling and cycling. So there's a wholeness that kind of holds the tarot cards. And so Sam often likes to to give gifts or tokens of appreciation, or that she's thinking of them, and that comes in the way of tarot. Sometimes a tarot pouch, sometimes like a cotton washcloth, or Sam has made me like a little lap blanket before. So it's both a representation of her, but also that piece of kind of constantly circling back, and like the intentionality and the meditation that comes with going in circles, and not in a negative way, but in a coming around, coming full circle, that sort of way.
And there is something about keeping your cards in a little pouch, right? There's something about having a holder for it.
Yeah, so some people will put their cards in a pouch and they'll add crystals because for them it will clear the deck or absorb energy, what may be. There's a practical reason I like to keep my cards in a pouch, and a huge reason is that the cardboard box often disintegrates over time. And so
Mm.
I have a deck. The deck I'm showing you today is the deck I use to give readings on other people. I have a deck that I just use for myself, and I don't give other people readings with it. It's just for me. And so I started using that deck of cards so often that the box quite literally fell apart and is in shreds and pieces. And so Sam made me a pouch in order to sort of keep my deck whole. And so there's that practical
Oh,
reason, but there's also that piece of it is part of the ritual of having a place for your tarot to go, that it becomes something special, something to remark, that
uh,
is just for you.
have they ever disappointed you?
Yes, all the time. It's not perfect. There's so many times when I'll pull a card and I'll be like, "No, that's bullshit. Absolutely not." And then for me it just brings up that feeling of why am I responding this way to this card? Why do I see the death card and automatically go, "Oh God, I'm going to die"? That's not what it all means. And so sometimes I'll pull a reading and I'll be like, I don't know, that doesn't really resonate. That's not super clear. And then a week later, usually I'll take a picture of my readings. A week later, I'll come back to it and be like, oh yeah, that's okay. I was being stubborn and not letting go of something when I really should have. And so sometimes it feels like getting a spoonful of disgusting medicine. And other times it feels really freeing. And so that's what comes with, I think, reflecting and actually taking time to be introspective, is that it's not always comfortable. It's oftentimes very difficult to be confronted with yourself, or to genuinely pause and sit in the discomfort of what the reading could say, of what it could interpret. And so when
Mhm.
you spend time in that way, you can feel disappointed because you're like, I want to get the best cards in the deck. I want to get the Sun card. I want to get the Ten of Pentacles, the Ten of Cups. I want all those best feelings of wish fulfillment, of everything is roses. And when that doesn't happen every single time, it can be frustrating, it can be hard, but it's in those sort of in between places that I think you can really sit with the parts of yourself that you don't always want to see or let others see, or that you let come to the surface.
Do you still do readings for other people? Like, I know you're busy and you just
I
have brain radiation, but
love,
still.
yes, I love doing readings for other people. Since moving to Hamilton, I haven't as much anymore. A huge part of that was needing to kind of be safe with getting sick when I was doing chemo. And then part of it was just being connected. So it's something that I want to do more this year, is to do readings for others. And it's something that I think is a way to keep bringing joy in my life, that it's a way that I can continue with that sort of writer storytelling version of myself, but in a verbal way, in a way that connects me with others, that I really really love and I really miss doing as well. So it's something that I kind of have on the horizon this year that I want to open up to do again.
Can you do them virtually or do you have to be in someone's space?
Yeah, I've definitely done them virtually. Some people really like being in person. I think it all depends on what the other person's looking for. If you are looking for a tarot reading and for me to kind of tell you what the cards mean and do a big reading and see what comes up, then like 100% it can be done virtually. I have done it before. But sometimes people like really want to be in person. They want to touch the cards. They want to sort of imbue their energy into the space, but that's not the only way that you can do it.
As someone who watched you do this on my mom and my sister, who you hadn't met before, you are a magic. I mean, I know I say that anyway because you are, but watching you pull cards and look at a stranger and tell that story, and it really hit for the for well, my sister and I found it really hit for us and for our mom. Lorraine, the closest she could get to not being skeptical, and she warned you, was that's a beautiful way to tell that story. Or she wasn't condescending. That sounds condescending. She wasn't. She really enjoyed it. She said you have a beautiful way to tell a story. Yes. Something like that.
Yeah.
It was actually beautiful. But and she loved it. Like she really loved listening to you. But you left and we all went to bed. But my sister and I immediately started texting each other. I was like, "Oh my God, Erin just saw through mom. Like she saw all of mom and then read it out and then told us the whole story." And Danielle's like, "I know." And we were like, "Do you think mom sees it?" And we were just like, "LOL, she'll she doesn't wanna."
Yeah. Well, and like that's such a great example because your mom is someone who is curious and open, and
Yes,
you know her, she's down for an adventure. And
totally.
and so she was willing to have the reading done, but she was like, "I'm very skeptical, dear, just so
Yes.
you know. Like it's not personal." And it's like, "Yeah, no problem.
And
I'm
you weren't
not
thrown
here."
at all.
No, because I my job isn't to tell you your future. My job isn't to try and convince you of anything. My job is to tell you what the cards mean, and then how do I see them connecting? What kind of meaning do they have in the context? And so I when I sat down with your mom in particular, it was a lot of emotional cards came up, a lot of cards around perhaps loss, and in that moment that's the kind of things that I'm sharing with her, and I'm not trying to convince her, tell her it's perfect, or try and phony my way through it of pretending that I know her, or things like
Hmm.
that, but just to be like, this is what this is the story that it's telling. And there are some people who are like, great, thanks, that's good, and then they walk away, and that's that. And then there's other people when I give those tarot readings where it kind of brings those feelings up to the surface. And so I've had a lot of people after readings kind of cry and want to talk about it. Other people who kind of get stuck still and just kind of thank me profusely and leave after. Some people who are like, "Huh, that's interesting." So there's different ways that you can react to a reading, but I think the curiosity is the most important part. And to for me to reassure that I'm really just telling you what the cards mean and how they go together. I'm not trying to pretend that they're more than just lovely pictures. It's a picture
Yeah.
story.
That was so, and you know what? Because she's a skeptic, to the fact that you phrased it that way for her really, I mean, she is very curious and her curiosity will win over her skepticism, which is what makes, I mean, she's my mom, but I'm like, that makes her so interesting to me because she's willing to go to to do something like this, or I'll bring her to some things that she was like, "I don't know why we're doing this, but I'm in it with you." And she'll share her opinion. But because you framed it in that way, it's more welcoming to sit and listen, you know? And they were about
Mhm.
loss, and she did lose my dad, you know? So it's just it shocked me when they all came up. It's not like you went through the deck and picked out the lost cards. That's what blew my mind. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that was so beautiful." Anyway, I don't know if you're looking to sell your services, but I highly recommend, and you were worth every penny.
Always open to new clients.
Yeah, you're incredible.
Yeah. Well, I think there's also a fine line. So I my job as the tarot reader is to tell you what the cards say, to share the story. And then kind of what I've been saying this whole time, there's a flip side to that. So there's the practical, grounded reality that these are pictures that we associate meanings with. And then there's that flip side where, on a personal level for me, I am a feeler as a person, although I kind of stuff it down and I've got this calm exterior that I try and convince everyone of, that I nothing phases me and everything's okay. That's not the truth. And for me, it allows me to get in touch with those feelings that are there, that are current, that kind of rages underneath the surface, and sort of to let it come out. And it it lets me feel like there's more to the universe than just kind of the bubble that I live in. That there is, some people might think it's God, some people treat it like the power of the universe, but there is something more than just our individual human lives, that we are connected to something more than ourselves. Some people think it's connected to nature or Mother Earth, some people think it's religion or what may be, but it's important to kind of foster that, because it allows your feelings to have significance, where you're not isolated and alone. You're not just plagued by difficulties and hardships, but or even grace or fortune. It's not just dumb luck, but perhaps all of this chaos that we exist is a part of a greater chaos of a universe that we are inherently connected with, that we are a part of. So whether it's just imagining how many grains of sand exist on planet Earth, or thinking that there might be God who looks, a version of God that looks over you or has a part of organizing our lives. It's a way to not be so isolated. And it's a way to connect with other people and to connect with yourself. And I think that's the greatest benefit that comes with tarot, is that pause that it brings of, oh, perhaps there's more than just these really hard things that happen in anybody's life at any given time. And that's the lovely part of it. So there's the kind of grounded, like, these are stories and reflections, but then there's more. On the other hand, there's more than just what's directly in front of us, whether it's the whole of civilization, whether it's the whole of nature, the whole of universe, but we are specks on this tiny blue dot in the galaxy. And if you think that means that there's a God who's created it, whether you think that the mass of matter of what exists beyond us, and tarot is a way for you to be a part of that and not just be your own psyche and your own life, then that's a great thing too.
What Enneagram number are you again?
5.
I knew it. I mean, you told me before and I forgot, but I'm like this deep well of information and knowledge and this like desire to
A
share
5
it.
wing 4.
I'm
Yeah.
like, well, 5.
There's something about the inherent nature of 5 of feel my most self when I understand things the best I can. And then when 5s are super doing well, they become teachers and leaders in that sense. So that's why I really love tarot, because it allows me to take all this information, all these ways that I've created to understand myself, to understand the world. It allows me to connect with other people's and perhaps even give that to them in any way that I can.
Yeah, I love it. Like we led a workshop on tarot through the studio that I used to own, and it was so fun. And I could just see people's faces just light up. And you were only able to touch on it. Even now, with an hour, we're only able to really touch on it because there's so much underneath and there's so much to learn. And like you said, there's what, 78 cards
I
to
think
know
so, yeah.
inside. Yeah, so it's like, but you're a gift in that you open the door and you make it so welcoming and so interesting, and I'm like, what else is there? So thank you for helping me share this with people, because I think it could get a bad rap. I think people are quick to be dismissive of things that they don't understand and that they think are frivolous, but I'm like, man, in this world, because life can be quite tough, can we embrace some of this stuff and like maybe stop trying to make it be something like you just said, we're not trying to tell your fortune, we're literally just trying to connect you with yourself, connect with each other, and look at some pretty pictures and be like, what's that castle in the background, you know?
Yeah,
It could be
yeah,
simple.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And if I were to give any sort of tip for someone starting with tarot, whether you've been doing it for years casually or whatever, my best tip is start, shuffle the deck. You can know when to stop, either when you feel like it's right or when a card kind of pops out or indicates that there's a natural stop in the shuffling. And you can just start with pulling one, maybe 3 cards if you're feeling fancy that day, and just start there and look at the pictures, see what it means to you, and have that moment of like, okay, does this mean nothing? That's okay, let's move on. Or, ah, that 5 of cups is really sticking with me, what about it? And you can come back to that. So it doesn't have to be this crazy big thing. It's not looking into a crystal ball, but yeah, having that moment of like, okay, I'm gonna pull this single card, I'm gonna maybe pull 3 cards and just see where that takes you.
one more quick thing you just made me think of. Sometimes I shuffle the deck and like a card does pop out. Most times I don't just turn one over. Like one is like it comes out or it's clearly sticking out or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I guess that one wants to be seen. But sometimes that happens with 2 or 3 cards. And I do look up all 3 or 2, whatever, how many fall out. That's a thing, right? Like look up all 3. Don't just reshuffle.
Yeah, so sometimes I feel like some people like to say out loud, like, I'm going to be pulling one card. And then when there
Oh,
feels like you want to stop shuffling, you can just pull a card, or if one pops out, that's your stopping point. Sometimes when you're shuffling and like 5 cards shoot out and they land on the ground, you're like, whoa, okay, that's too much. So sometimes it could be like, maybe I'm supposed to see all of these 5 cards. Sometimes it's like, no, 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 this is too much energy. I only want one. So you
okay.
can go back. So it really depends. Does those 5 feel like they suit you, and that's what you're called
Yeah.
towards, or do you want to go back where
Go with your
it is
gut.
about sort of that moment? Yeah, go with your gut.
Stop overthinking it, Nadine.
Mhm. There's no right way.
What are you going to have for dinner?
That's a great question. I actually have some turkey I'm going to be roasting with some Brussels sprouts and sweet potato. Sam and I are thrilled. We're very excited for a nice sort of cozy roast dinner.
Yeah, it's so cold out. All right. Well, you and Sam give Sam the biggest hug from me and your new dog, Frankie. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Give him a cuddle. Oh,
Frankie,
and
she's only 9 months old and she loves a cuddle. She'll come home from her morning walk and she sort of sits in my chair and waits for me to come over so she can cuddle up. It's been happening for the past like 2 weeks and I really hope it continues.
oh, she's so cute. Ooh. All right. Thank you for giving me your time and sharing all of your deep well of knowledge and your delightful humanity. You're just
Course,
great.
it is my pleasure to be here and to talk with you. And for anyone listening who gives me the time of day, I appreciate you and thank you so much for caring.
Do you think Sam will let me move in? Because I could just talk to you forever and ever.
Yeah, we've got this spare bedroom for a reason.
For Sam to sleep in, because I'm going to be tucked up next to you. And I'm like, anyway, Erin. So then
Yeah.
David's card said, and you're going to be like, I think you need to go now.
Well, not only tarot, once we're done with that, then we can start getting into Enneagram.
Yes, I know. What a deep dive. But I feel like Sam really needs to be on the Enneagram one.
I think she would love that.
Yeah, we
She
need to
would
do like an
absolutely love that.
Enneagram chat. Oh my God, should we do the 3 of us chatting about the Enneagram?
That sounds fantastic.
Okay,
I would have
okay.
so much fun.
Yeah,
Well, also
let's
we'd be
plan
a good
that.
mix where I'm a 5, you're 7, Sam's a 9.
It's gonna be poetic. It's gonna be magic.
Yes,
I love you forever and ever.
I love you forever and ever.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Nadine.